Beautiful. Okay, everybody. Well, look, thanks for coming and welcome to another Tuesday live training here at One Source Personal Development Network. We're going to go ahead, we're going to get it kicked off relatively quickly here today because we got a lot of material to cover and I want to be respectful of everybody's time. So, what are we going to talk about today? What's the topic going to be? Well, if I can get my thing working. Here we go. Today's topic. What are we going to talk about? We're going to talk about achieving big goals with small, consistent action. Now, this, as you all know, you've probably heard me talk about this too often, but I'm going to continue to talk about it because it's primarily the basis of everything that we do here at One Source. But it's all about those small, consistent actions that we take. That's what our entire system is built on. Daily, consistent action. And they don't need to be massive actions at all. I know a lot of people, when they get involved, they want to make big changes, so they want to take big actions. And that's okay, but it's your job as a consultant to advise. You never tell, but you can always advise the individuals that you're working with to ensure that primarily that they understand that this is a long-term game plan. This isn't about making massive change quickly. I'm not saying you can't, but I believe the best strategy is achievable small actions, but the most important thing is the consistency. It has to be done on a daily consistent basis, and you'll get there. I guarantee you'll get there, and so will the clients that you're working with. So we're going to kick it off with a TED Talk. This is a TED Talk that I personally I enjoy very much. It's a young man that you may have seen or you may not have, but he's got some very interesting points, and we're going to get into it a bit deeper afterwards, and we're going to apply a lot of what he talks about to our system, working on your own system, but also too, obviously, with the clients that you're supporting. So hopefully everybody will be able to hear it. If there's any problems, just let me know, and we'll go ahead and get things kicked off.
When I was in grade 12, my teacher told me 3 words that totally changed my
Sorry, guys. I'm just going to go ahead and turn off my video and my
life. Small, consistent actions. It was April 2017, and I was seated in his world issues class. Growing up, I have to admit, I wasn't the brightest student, and I didn't like school all that much. But for some reason, every time I was in his class, I always felt engaged. And on this particular day, he was not talking about any ordinary topic. Instead, he was speaking about figures in history who have massively changed this world. People like Malcolm X, Martin Luther King, Gloria Steinem, Gandhi. The list went on and on. And he took these figures and he wrote their names on the board. This was the only teacher I ever had who still used a blackboard. But then he began breaking down their lives, trying to figure out what common characteristics they all shared that enabled them to make a massive change in the world. We found they had many distinct traits that made them each different and unique. But there was this one thing that was common among them all. They all took small, consistent actions that led to their global massive changes. You see, that day in class, my teacher proved to me and all of my classmates that if we wanted to make a massive change in the world, we could. And all we had to do was commit to a small, consistent action. I left class that day with a burning desire within my chest to try and make a change within my community. But like many of you, at the age of 17 years old, I had absolutely no idea how I was going to do this. I didn't have a job. I didn't even know where I wanted to go to university, let alone talk about something like changing the world, right? Well, like many students, every day after school, I would walk home. And my walk was about 30 to 40 minutes. I would take my headphones out, pop them in my ears, listen to some music and podcasts. But after that day in class, I decided to change my routine. I took my headphones out. I put them in my pockets. And instead, I began asking myself the questions. Sam, how are you going to change the world? What is your small, consistent action going to look like? Now, before I continue with the rest of that story, I need you to understand where I was personally at that point in my life, or else the story won't make that much sense. Because 2 years ago, if you told me that I would be standing on this stage here today, talking about a lesson that changed my life, I would have told you that you're insane. In fact, I probably would have told you that I will be in the United States on a full-ride scholarship playing Division I soccer. Like many of you, I had a dream for my life from a very young age. And my dream was to play professional soccer. At the age of 13, I had the opportunity to travel to Europe and live by myself for 6 months and experience the professional culture. And when I came back to Canada, I came back with a new passion for the sport. And throughout my 4 years of high school, I sacrificed everything to pursue my dream of playing professional soccer. But in grade 12, at the age of 17, everything changed. It was mid-November, maybe 1 week before the biggest opportunity in my soccer career, and I was playing in a friendly match with my team. It was just before halftime, maybe 5 minutes before the whistle, when I went shoulder to shoulder with this 250-pound beast. And after our initial contact, I caught myself. But very quickly, I realized that something felt a little funny in my left knee. And for the next 5 minutes, I ran around with some pain in my calf before deciding to put my ego aside and get off the field. And as I crossed the line, I immediately burst into tears. Because deep down, I knew that something was terribly wrong. And the worst part about it is that my parents weren't even there. And I had to hitch a ride home with my teammate. And for the whole 40-minute drive home, I pouted in the back seat like a little child. Fast forward 1 month, I ended up getting the results from my MRI, and it turned out I had torn the meniscus in my left knee. I felt absolutely defeated, mentally and physically, because I just missed the opportunity I had been training for so emphatically. But you see, I wanted this dream so badly, so I would not give up. I got the surgery done, and I got back onto the field. And just as things began to improve, I ended up tearing the meniscus in my left knee a second time. And this time around, looking back, I realized I broke down uncontrollably crying in front of my family, my friends, and my teammates. I couldn't understand why life seemed to be beating me to the ground for no reason. I then had a second surgery. And I even took a 5th year of high school, or grade 13 for you old folks back here, to try and keep that dream alive. And just when I thought things could not get any worse, it happened again. A third time. This time in my other knee, which forced me to quit and give up the sport that I loved. It was at that point in my life that I realized I had so deeply attached my personal identity and self-worth to the sport I played. I mean, raise your hand if you have an email address here. I'm pretty sure we all do. Just to put it in perspective, it was so bad that my email was soccersam99. Soccer was all I knew, and I feared that I would be worth nothing without it. So that's where I was at this point in my life when my teacher taught me this lesson about small, consistent actions. The reason I shared with you my soccer story is because I want you to understand you do not need to go through extreme adversity, 2 knee surgeries, and give up a lifelong dream only to realize that doing good things that benefit others also fulfills yourself. And my teacher proved that to me through his personal passion for solving world issues. And so while walking home from school after that day in class, when I was asking myself the questions, how are you going to change the world? What is your small, consistent action going to look like? I didn't realize it at the time, but looking back, I now see that I was taking the first small step towards building some serious momentum. And it took me 14 days to finally come up with an answer to those questions. I was walking home when a coffee cup blew across the sidewalk. And I still can't explain this portion of the story, but for some reason, on an impulse decision, I decided to put my teacher's theory to the ultimate test. I walked up to the cup, I bent down, and I picked it up. And for the next 4 months, I made my small, consistent action picking up litter while walking home from school. I had no intentions of building something out of this, but to my surprise, my teacher was correct. And that small, consistent action would soon thereafter grow into a citywide initiative. Because 5 days before summer break, my good friend Dylan saw me driving home, and like any teenager, he pulled over, he rolled down his window, and he looked at me like this. And then he said, "Sam, what the heck are you doing? Why are you picking up garbage?" And when I explained to him the theory that small actions lead to a massive change, he absolutely loved it. And then he made the statement that changed my future forever. He said, "Sam, let's do something with this." And that was the day that Pick Waste was born. Pick Waste is a community initiative that was started out of the necessity to play our small part in solving a global issue, while at the same time inspiring individuals like yourselves to realize the potential you have on this planet. It began on July 1st, 2017, and since that day, we have kickstarted 4 different cleanup crews in 4 different cities, completed over 80 cleanups, filled over 850 bags of garbage, and picked up over 21,000 cigarette butts. It has also given me the opportunity to speak in front of over 8,000 individuals just like yourself to spread this message and to raise awareness. You see, our movement exemplifies the power of consistency. It was one small action, one small idea that led to this citywide initiative. But please do not get me wrong. The reason I told you about Pick Waste is not because I want you to go and start picking up litter. Although if you do see it, please do pick it up. But the reason I told you about Pick Waste is because I wanted to give you a real-life example about how this theory of small, consistent actions played out in my personal life. But what is 10 times, or even 1,000 times more important is how this theory could play out in your life. Because there are thousands of social issues facing the world today that need courageous leaders like yourselves to step up and face these problems. The biggest lie we have ever been taught, told, or heard is that one person is too insignificant, that one person is irrelevant in the bigger picture or on the global scale. And I'm here today to tell you that that is absolutely false. And I can even prove it to you in less than 10 seconds. Are you ready? Malcolm X, Martin Luther King, Gloria Steinem, Lewis Tappan, Solomon Northup, William Wilberforce, Gandhi, Bill Drayton, Florence Nightingale, Fabio Rosa. The list goes on and on of people no different than you and I. You see, they're just human beings who decide to commit to small, consistent actions, and it allowed them to change this world. What is stopping you from being the next person that I count on my fingertips? Because my teacher told me that those figures in history are not anomalies. We can all change the world. Never underestimate the power of small actions executed consistently. Never underestimate the power of momentum, because things in motion tend to stay in motion. And never underestimate yourself, because you are no different than any other change maker who has ever walked on this earth. Now, before I wrap this up, I have one piece of homework that I want to leave you with. As you leave this conference here today, I want you to think about one problem that you are passionate about. One problem that you want to start solving. And over the next 2 weeks, the next 14 days, I want you to come up with some small, consistent actions that you can begin implementing in your personal life to start solving this problem. And I promise you, you'll begin taking these actions, and it will start gaining momentum, and you will build a little initiative. And as you start to have an impact, people will begin asking you the question, how do you plan on changing the world? And when I was 17, in grade 12, I did not have an answer to that question. But I hope that after hearing this presentation here today, if anyone ever asked you, how do you plan on changing the world? You would take a little step back, put a big smile on your face, and respond with those 3 simple but extremely powerful words. Small, consistent actions. Thank you.
Okay, so very impressive young man. I've seen that TED Talk several times actually, but it really resonates with me. First off, I think he's an impressive young man. Uh, he learned primarily, I suppose, by the age of 17, what took me probably 50 years of my life to figure out. But small, consistent actions, very powerful, extremely. Once you fully understand significance of what he's saying there and how to implement it into your life and how to share it with others, it's life changing. So if you look at, for an example, the fact that it's not that exciting. I mean, consistent small actions, it really is a boring way to success. It's not sexy. It's nothing overly exciting about it, but it works. I can guarantee you, and I think everybody here understands this by now, but it definitely works. If you do it on a daily, consistent basis, and that's what we're going to focus on the rest of this session, is how we can begin implementing some small, consistent actions into our systems and working with the other individuals, our prospects and our clients. But if you think about it, and you've heard me say this before, depending on how new or how long you've been around, but I've talked about this several times. That's all our system is based on. If you look at it, focus, balance, purpose, but you have primarily your daily actions that you're taking on a consistent basis. None of them really, for the majority of us anyway, I know mine aren't massive actions, but they're done consistently. And over a period of time, they grow into something massive, massive change. But he talks about a lot about changing the world. I'm a big believer in changing the world. As you all know, that I have big plans with this system that we're using here. By the time I leave this earth, I have a vision of tens of thousands of people using this system on a daily basis. That's my contribution. Yours can be something bigger, or it can be just raising an amazing family. And they're they're all worthwhile, no question about that. But Gandhi says, he's known for saying this, and this is what I want to really shift the focus to. If you want to change the world, start with yourself. Become the best version of yourself. Be the best, friend, son, daughter, brother, sister that you can possibly be. The best parent that you could possibly be. Be, the best version of yourself for yourself that you can be. Because that's giving something back to the world. And that really is what our system is about. It's about becoming the best version of ourselves for ourselves and also to share with others. So Tony Robbins likes to say your life changes the moment you make a new, congruent, and committed decision. The key thing in that statement, to me, is the word committed. I think too many of us, and I'm guilty of it myself, I'm never here pointing the finger at anybody, because I can tell you, I'm probably the oldest person in this room, and I've made a lot of mistakes in my life. So I'm never going to judge anybody. I'm not pointing the finger at anybody. But I've been around long enough to understand the power of a committed decision. I think too many of us we have very weak decision making muscles. We make a decision, but then we give them up very quickly. But I believe that that's part of the reason you want to make committed decisions, to take small actions. You want to make sure that when you make a decision, you commit to it 100%, but you want it to be achievable. You don't want to set yourself up to fail, because if you continuously do that, what's going to happen is primarily that you're going to lose your confidence. You're going to not trust yourself. And it's going to become a habit, a bad habit of making decisions and breaking them. But small actions can truly equal big changes. Same as small changes can make a big impact. So, what type of small changes, or what type of small actions can you make right now within your system? I mean, you have an opportunity now. It's the beginning of a new month. You should be setting your goals. Matter of fact, I was just talking to some people earlier about setting goals. Take time the rest of the evening tonight, or schedule some time, either tonight or in the morning, but make some decisions as far as what type of changes, what type of actions, and they don't have to be massive, small actions that you can take, but make a committed decision. Once you make that decision, make a committed decision to stick to it no matter what. Don't think short term, think long term. And I encourage you to share these thoughts with the clients or the prospects that you're working with when you're setting goals. Too often we tend to get caught up in wanting to make big change. When you're meeting with your clients on a weekly basis, and you're setting goals monthly with them, encourage them to make small changes and commit to small, consistent actions. But again, committed, make sure that you emphasize that and emphasize it yourself. Committed decisions, and ensure that primarily that they're achievable, and again, they're done consistently. That's the whole message to everything he was saying there. And I'm a big believer in it. But what can you do in your relationships? What can you do in your area of your health and your fitness? Take the time to go through them. And again, they don't have to be massive. Small, something small, but that you can really commit to. There's got to be something in the relationships that you can do. Your relationship with yourself. Maybe, every time you catch yourself talking negatively to yourself, negative self-talk, that you're going to do something. Maybe if you're in a relationship with somebody else, maybe you just some small thing that you can do for that individual on a consistent basis that is going to have a massive effect long term. The area of your health, there's got to be something that you could commit to, some small little change that you could commit to in your health, and don't be too ambitious with it. Like I say, small change, small action you can take that you can commit to doing consistently. For an example, most of you have been around long enough to hear my story about myself and chocolate. When I first started, after I had my health challenge, and I had my heart attack and all that goes with it. At the time, as you know, I was grossly overweight. I was terribly overweight, and I had been for most of my adult life because of bad habits. I ate all the wrong foods. I didn't exercise right. I didn't look after myself. I didn't get proper sleep. I drank probably more than I should have. With the exception of smoking, every bad habit you can have, I pretty much had. But the worst for me was probably chocolate. And I don't know what it was, but dairy milk specifically, I was literally addicted. And I know it sounds silly to even say it. I sound silly saying it at this stage when I think about it. But I was so bad with chocolate. Every time I'd go into a shop, whether it be to get petrol, whether it be to get some milk and bread, something to eat, whatever the case, I'd always have to come out with chocolate. And I would never just buy one bar, I would buy 2 bars. And the reason being is because I knew the first one I would have eaten in the first 60 seconds after buying it. And I did that for so long, and I tried everything. I'm going to cut back. I'm only going to do it on the weekends. I'm going to cut down to, maybe just, once or twice a week, have 1 bar. Nothing worked. So after I had my health issues and I started getting into personal development, I made a committed decision and it was a committed decision. I was going to give up chocolate. I was just going to cut it out of my life. It was a small action. I still did other things. I'm not saying I gave up all sweets or I gave up all, buns or biscuits or any of that. I just made a committed decision that I was going to give up chocolate. And I'm happy to say to this day, the guy, I don't even know how long it's been. It wasn't immediately after my surgery. It was probably a year or so after. So it's probably 9, 10 years ago, 8 years ago, 9 years ago, whatever it was. I haven't had a piece of chocolate since. But again, it was a small action that I took, and I didn't see the effects immediately, obviously. But I tell you, the effects that it had long term were life changing for me. Because after a while of giving up that chocolate, well, my confidence went up. I felt like, you know what, I can actually go, I can do this. And next time I made a decision to start exercising, to start drinking water, to start doing other activities, I had the belief and the confidence that I can do them. And I stuck to it. And again, that's what that one small action can do. But you don't see the results quickly. Don't see the results for could be months or possibly even years. But trust me, small actions done consistently, small committed decisions done consistently can have major, major impact. But also to your area of growth, what small decision can you make? I really encourage you guys because it's like, again, the beginning of a new month. You should really be looking at your goals and you should be looking at the goals with the people you're working with, depending on where they're at, obviously. But make sure that you go ahead and you look at that area of the relationships, your health, your growth, and see if you can just identify some small committed actions that you can include, that you're going to include into your system, that you're going to commit to doing, that they are going to commit to doing consistently. And obviously, the area of your finances. This is one that I find the majority of people that I work with tend to struggle. Like I'm not saying it's simple, but there's so much information out there about, say, health, for an example. If you want to get healthy, there's literally tens of thousands of books and YouTube videos and programs and coaches and everything under the sun. The same thing with relationships and whatnot. But oftentimes I find that the individuals I work with, they don't quite know what to do around the area of finances. So what I want to do is I want to share with you a simple book. Some of you may have read it. I've talked about it before. But The Richest Man in Babylon, an amazing book. It was written in 1926, so it's the guts of 100 years old. It's 94, 95 years old at this stage. But it's a simple book. I think it's 144 pages, big print, not a difficult read at all. But every lesson in that book applies to today, even though it's not written 94, 95 years ago. And it's all about creating wealth and security. It's told in a story. It's told in such a way that many, many years ago there was the king of Babylon, and he was frustrated seeing all his the subjects struggling financially, and when there were so many riches around them. So he summoned the richest man in Babylon and gave him the task of creating a number of actions that an average person can incorporate into their life to become wealthy. So it's told in the form of a story, but it's really, I find it's very entertaining. But everything that he talks about in the book applies today, and I'll just run through some of them very quickly with you. So when you're coming up to the area of your finances and you're looking to set some goals, or you're trying to create some committed decisions to some actions that you can take, small actions that you can take, you might want to consider some of these. But if you haven't read the book, I really encourage you to either listen to the audio book or get a copy of the book. And I'm going to show you some at the end of this where you can go in and you can actually listen to it for free. But the first lesson that he talks about is pay yourself first. Now, I've talked to people about this before, and people tend to come in and they say, "Well, of course I pay myself first." But do you really? Your chances are you're getting paid, and as soon as that money comes in, it's going out. It's going to pay your rent. It's going to pay your credit card bills. It's going to go ahead and, make your car payment, or it's going to go buy your groceries, or it's going for your entertainment or your Netflix or whatever the case may be. You're becoming a slave to that debt. Get in the habit of taking a minimum of 10%. You need that 10%, and you're going to see why. But start out with 10% or whatever percentage you can do. If you can only do 5%, do 5%, whatever the case may be. I recommend 10%, and so does the author of the book. 10% of everything you make, you really should make that committed decision to putting it off to the side. Matter of fact, you shouldn't even see it. You should make it automated, that it comes out of your paycheck into an account instantly. You never even see it. There's all kinds of apps you can get, Revolut cards, whatever the case may be. Look it up. There's countless that you can go ahead and you can actually use for managing this. But each out of everything you make, and don't tell me about how, oh, I can't afford it. I'll do it as soon as I make more money, I'll do it. No, you won't. Because as you earn more money, all that's going to happen is you're going to acquire more debt. You're going to buy a nicer car, you're going to have a nicer lifestyle, you're going to buy a bigger house, whatever the case may be. 10% of everything you make, and that you should be preaching this to your clients and your prospects as well when the time is appropriate. Obviously not in the early days. You don't preach to anybody in the early days. But you should be advising. You never tell people what to do, but you advise them what to do. 10% should go into an account only for you, but not for you to buy something with. That money is not to be used to go and I'm going to save it for a nicer house. I'm going to save it for a holiday. No, that's not what it's about. And I'm going to explain to you as we progress here. But the first thing you need to do is start getting that 10%, off to the side, or whatever percentage you truly can afford. The next thing you want to do, and we've all talked about this before, control your expenses. Okay? We talk about controlling your expenses. What do we mean? It means being frugal. It means getting value for money. What you need to do is you need to be very disciplined. You need to make a committed decision to a budget, and you need to live and die by that budget. You're never going to get out of the debt. You're never going to get out of the hole. You're never going to acquire the type of funds or the wealth that you're hoping to achieve unless you could start putting a certain percent, 10% minimum it should be, off to the side, and then start controlling your expenses. Then, with the money that you're saving, that 10%, and the money that you're controlling, you're reducing your outgoings, what you should do, and this is all in the book, you need to start making that money work for you. How do you make money work for you? Well, you invest. And you might say, well, I don't have any money to invest. That's because you haven't started saving yet. But once you save that 10% for a period of time, it might take 3 months, it might take 6 months. It's okay. Let it accumulate. Reduce your outgoings. Then, when you have a small pot of money, it doesn't have to be large at all. You need to start making that money work for you. You need to start investing. And if anybody wants any advice with that, there's lots of ways you can do it. I can give you a little bit of guidance on it, but I'm no expert. I know what works for me, but I can point you in the right direction, definitely. But again, you want to make sure that you're going ahead and you're investing the money that You're saving that 10% and the money that you're acquiring by reducing your outgoings. Put that money to work for you. Don't make the mistake of primarily just saving up the money so you can go blow it. That's not what this is about. Okay? You can blow the other 90%, the 90% of money that you're getting if you have to. But you should be really watching that money as well. But then you want to protect your wealth. We talk about protecting your wealth. You want to be very careful of who you're listening to. Where are you getting advice? And that's why I say I'm more than happy to talk to anybody about it, but I won't tell you what to do with your money. But again, you want to make sure that it's a sound investment, a secure, sound investment. Not in the latest fad like Bitcoin or some, even though I do Bitcoin myself, but I do it a different way. I've talked to you guys about that before. I do it with what I refer to as found money that I get from some scrap metal that I get from tearing apart old equipment as I do for a hobby. But I wouldn't invest any real money. And I know people talking, oh yeah, it's making so much right now, and it is. It's right now it's at an all-time high. Bitcoin, it's insane. But you should never invest in anything that you don't fully understand. And cryptocurrency, as attractive as it is, it's very volatile at the moment, and you have no idea where it's going to go if you don't understand it. And I can guarantee you, the majority of people out there, I've been investing in Bitcoin for years, and I don't fully understand it. But again, whatever you decide to invest in, wherever you decide to put your money, make sure you understand it and you get sound advice from somebody you can trust and somebody who truly knows what they're talking about. Don't just look up something on the internet. Don't just talk to somebody's brother-in-law or somebody that you don't really know because he's a financial planner. Get sound advice. Protect that money. Protect that money that you save. Invest it wisely. You should all, if you don't already, and everybody here is in different age brackets, but you should definitely be working on paying off and owning your home. That's something I feel very strongly about. I was fortunate enough, before I was 50, I had my house paid off because my wife and I were pretty good about making sure that we always made extra payments and everything else to get that down. But I know there's a lot of different, depending on who you listen to, a lot of people say you never pay your money, pay your house off early. You should be taking that money and you should be investing it. Yeah, there's a certain logic to that, but I don't agree with it personally. But again, that's for you to decide. But regardless, you should, and it might be 20 years down the road, but you should be planning it depending on where you're at in your journey, owning your own home. And finally, you should really be investing in yourself. And you are. Everybody here tonight is investing in themselves. They're looking at, other out there. They're coming here to learning things. They're acquiring new skills. You're involved with one source, so you have an opportunity to increase your earnings with one source. But are you really using that knowledge that you're acquiring? Don't get caught up in just, I enjoy learning, I enjoy watching YouTube videos, I enjoy reading this book. Knowledge isn't power. Knowledge is only potential power. It does not become power until you put that knowledge to use. That's what you really need to be looking at. That's what you really need to be taken into consideration. Like the knowledge that you're getting here, you're getting some, I believe, very strong information. It's not coming from me. This is all coming from different things I've learned from others. Like I read this book, The Richest Man in Babylon, back when I was in the States. So it was over probably 24, 25 years ago minimum that I read this book. But again, there's so much good information out there, but don't just read it, apply it. But invest in yourself, in your education, and improving your skill set, become more valuable to the marketplace. Learn, like when we talk about saving that percentage of your money right now, while you're saving that money, you should be looking and learning and strategizing how you're going to invest it. That's the time to do it before you even have it. You should be learning. So when you acquire a little bit of money, that's not the time to start deciding what to do with it. You've got time now. Start acquiring your 10%, let it build, reduce your outgoings, let it build, learn, study, come up with a strategy of what you're going to invest in. Invest in yourself by continuing your education. And again, even with one source, you all have an opportunity here. Everyone listening to this right now, whether you're with me live or you're listening on a video on at a later stage, you all have the opportunity to earn money, a good money, with one source. And some of you are doing that. Some of you, and I'm not judging anybody, you have priorities. Maybe your job is your priority. Maybe your, other activities that you're involved in, and that's all fine. But you all have an opportunity here. You should really be investing in that opportunity, investing in yourself, prospecting. If you're only an associate, you get 30%. 30% month in, month out of every client that you plug into the system. If you're a personal development consultant, you get 50%, and you can get that 30% on top of it if you refer the person in. If you're a joint venture partner, you get that 70%, and you also get 20% put into your GL, and you guys know all this. But again, that's the opportunity you have. You should be investing in yourself. Invest your time into yourself, into your business. But regardless what you do, I'm not here trying to pitch you to I would like to see everybody do more, but again, that's your priority, your business, your decision. But do something. Invest in yourself. But those are the key principles taught in The Richest Man in Babylon. And even though that book is 95 years old, everything that he wrote back then applies today. Save 10% minimum of everything you earn. Let that money accrue. Make sure that you reduce your outgoings as much as you can. Let that money accrue. Add it to the pile. Then don't blow that money. Take that money. Invest that money wisely. And let it grow. Put that money to work for you. It doesn't happen overnight. What am I talking about? I'm talking about small actions done consistently that produce massive results over time. So that's the advice I would give to you. If you want to listen to this, the book is great. I highly recommend you get your hands on a copy. But again, seeing how we're talking about not spending money, maybe you don't want to spend the money on the book, and that's okay too. I did it right before this session. I went on to YouTube, just did a search for The Richest Man in Babylon. It's on there the audio book is on there. You can go in, and it's roughly less than 5 hours. And truthfully, I don't know why it's so long. He must be a very slow reader, because I know the book. I read the book in a lot less than 5 hours. But regardless, invest that time in yourself. Go on to YouTube, type in The Richest Man in Babylon. You have, I found it instantly available to listen to for 100% free. It won't cost you a penny. take notes, but it's basically everything that I just taught you there in a little bit more detail. But you can see there, if you can see it, there's like over 2.5 million people have listened to this particular YouTube video. It's an amazing book. I really encourage you to go ahead and get your hands on a copy, get the audio book, whatever you need to do, listen to it on YouTube. But don't just listen to it. No, use the knowledge that's in the book. So other than that, guys, we'll wrap it up. Again, thanks very much for joining. Always a pleasure. Always grateful to everybody who attends live, and always grateful to all the people that listen at a later stage down the road. So have a great night. Questions, comments, concerns, as you know, I'm there for you. If you need anything, feel free to reach out, and I hope to see y'all soon. All right.